All right, cool. So the question that we just had was how do you get back to the original state? So
when we rec button gets on.
right. So I don't think there's a way to get back to the actual state. It's actually changing that property value. So you would have to build that into your actual state management, right? You would have to remember the original state. I don't think there's, at least from my knowledge, I don't think there's anything that actually does that. But if you're interested in doing something like repeat, I can show you guys that, right? So set repeat count, let's say 3 times, and move set repeat mode. I think there should be something called reverse. Okay, let's show what that looks like. Oh, shoot. Sorry, hold on, guys. But if you think about how you would build this is exactly how you'd build it, right? Because you're hooked into the keyframes, you look at the delta, then every single time you have a delta, please get me a keyframe. I can add an exponential function to it. I can add a sinusoidal function to it. I can add a linear function to it. And then I can also, if I would reverse is simply like the opposite, right? And so it's not that complicated to go. Right, so remember what I was changing was just a y, right? Right? So went 1, 2, 3, right? For just the y-axis. Right? So I repeated 3 times and did it. Went all the way back in reverse. If I didn't have this repeat mode, I don't think I think it would just restart at the top. So let's see. Actually, sorry, that means there probably is a way for it to recover to the original state. I'll look that up because repeat seems to know that where it started from, right? So that means there should be a way for it to recover to its original state. I bet you it has some initial value setting. Okay, I'll have to look that up, sorry. I just don't know. Okay? All right. Activity animations. Probably the worst thing ever. Let's create a new activity. Let's call it the non-main activity. All right, and then actually, I'm just going to change the entire background here. Okay. Okay, cool. Let me comment all this stuff out. Sorry for the mess, guys. Just want to keep it there in case we need it back later. Okay. So how do we get to the non-main activity? Start activity, right? New intent. Let's go as an intent. Goes intent, guys. Intent. Okay. Alright, so let's just make sure that works. Uh-oh. What happened? What? Weird. Okay, let's try that again. Oops. Wait, what's happening? Why is that breaking? Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry. Do you guys know what's happening? I know what's happening. Ah, painful. Alright. Alright, let's get it. Oh, one other thing. Forgot something here. Alright guys, you guys should know this. What was it? Was it? Was it? No, we have to set the XML, right? Guys? Alright, on screen. Right? And set on 10. Right? Well, pretty terrible animation, right? Okay, so the way that the old view animation worked was that it was just like kind of attached at the very end. So what would happen is it would animate. Right now, like when we animate and interpolate, we set the property every single time. So when I stop, if I cancel, right, it's already moved, so it would just keep that value. In the old animations, what would happen is that it would move on screen in the render buffer from one location to the other. But if you actually check the location of X and Y, it was still in the old position, including your click. So it was terrible, right? It didn't work. But anyways, like activities still use that because like as I've told you guys many times before, activities have sort of just been a legacy thing, and same with fragments. Fragments before they had, I think, all this new object animator stuff. They had fragments, and those fragments also use this view animation, but it's kind of crappy, but we kind of have to live with it. Okay. So instead of, well, first of all, in order to add these animations, there's this anim directory that we're going to create. This is where all the legacy animations go. So instead of me sort of going through and like writing all of them, I think we have a pack. So Nate, from CodePath actually compiled a bunch, right? Because right now the default animation is not very good. So what you can do is you can basically have all these, right? You have zoom out, zoom in, together, slide up, slide out, right, slide out left, slide in right, right? So there's two things. When you want to use one of these, what you got to do is you basically call override pending. Sorry, not here. When you call start activity, after start activity, you call override pending transition. So you have the enter animation and the exit animation, right? Enter animation, exit animation. Okay? So what we do is we're going to copy all of these in, or some of these in. Okay? So I don't know. What do you guys want? You want to slide in, slide out? Okay. No? Well, what do you want? Wait, what do you want? It's too simple. Okay. Sorry, I forgot which one I copied. Slide in left. Horizontal flip. You want flip? Do we have flip? Okay, let me copy first slide in. We can go through a few, okay? We got time. We sort of have time. Slide in right. Make sure, guys, double check to make sure I'm like copying these correctly, because you guys know where all the mistakes happen, right? When you copy. When you copy, that's when everyone makes all the mistakes. All right, slide out left. Okay, slide out right. Okay, so let's do this, right? Pending transition. We are going to the next screen, right? So the enter animation, we want it to what? Slide in, I think, from the right. And then exit, slide what? Out, left. Okay, I hope that's right. Let's try it. Let's try it. Boom! Right? No more crappy default animations, right? But this is pretty terrible actually to have this underneath, right? Okay, but this is the part that sucks. Is I clicked back, and it didn't do the reverse animation. That's terrible, right? That's terrible. That's so terrible. So what you actually have to do is you have to, in your non-main activity, you have to like, shoot, you have to override the on back press, and then override pending transition. Okay, and slide in right. Is that right? I don't think so. Slide. I think it's more like this, right? Slide in. Yeah. Okay. Let's see it. Let's see if this will work. Hope it works. Hope it works. It'll do something, right? In. Back. Right. But this is actually absolutely terrible, because that means you guys can imagine how complex interactions get. Like you can, so usually, not all activities animate in the same way, right? So literally overriding the back press for every single animation like kind of sucks, right? For every activity, like every single time I call start activity, I would have to like know exactly how it was, what the calling context was, and then like add this override pending transition. I mean, that's terrible, right? So, I mean, back in the day, like I would try to come up with a lot of different ways to like either a base class that would remember like what type of animation it took to get there, and create like the opposite, so that on back press it would just do the opposite. But now we have this magical thing called themes, right? So you can actually go into your theme. Let's see if I can find the documentation on this. You can actually override it. So on enter, on exit, right? Right? So you can actually basically override this thing, animations in it. So there's a problem here, which is that oftentimes you still want like to animate in like downwards or upwards. So most of the times, what you guys have seen, if you guys are doing a navigation move, it's always like to the right, like it animates. The new screen comes in from the right, and when you go back, it's from the left. But if you want to like do something like posting, it comes either from like the bottom or the bottom up or top down, right? So it still means that you have to override stuff. So I would still spend some time and think about how you could create like a base activity or a base fragment that, or a way of specifying it so that it remembers how it got there, and then you can just animate backwards. Then you're not overriding on pressed every single time. It's on back pressed. Okay? You guys want to try another one? We can try like something else too. Let's go there. I don't know if I have spin. Oh, rotate. We do have rotate. Okay, let's try it. Let's try this. Okay. Slide. Let's rotate. Should look kind of funky, I think. Hope it works. I haven't tried this yet, so let's see. Right? Well, it's still rotating. Oh, there must be no duration on this. No, there's a duration. Weird. Strange. Oh, no, actually it did work. I think it just took longer. Let's try that again. Did it? Oh, no. Cool. Yeah, it says infinite. Let's try. We count. Cool. It sort of worked. Oh, it says repeat. That's because I said repeat. But yeah, you guys are getting the idea. Don't do that animation. It's pretty terrible. Cool. So actually, for fragments, I won't set that up. But for fragments, I think so. Basically, the fragments also use that. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, fragment transition. So you got a fragment manager, and so you can have custom animation, again, in, out, right? When you call replace. So it's like the same thing that's happening here, right? Cool, guys? Is that making sense? Any questions? Okay, so most of the times though, you will most likely use, I don't know, a library. So this guy has some pretty cool stuff that he does. The last instructor before me, Quan, pointed this out, and so you guys can take a look at this stuff. There's also some more interesting animations. Let me show you. Sorry, let me show you where that is. Okay, so the shared element activity transition is something that we often see a lot now with list views, right? We take the contents of the inside and we transition that into a new view. So you guys can take a look at that, right? This is what it looks like, right? So I click on the thing, it takes the elements that were already inside that cell and it animates. But again, what is the problem with Android? Backwards compatibility. So if you guys do anything with this, you guys are most likely, unless you guys are writing your own custom ones for the old stuff, you guys are probably like excluding a certain portion of the user base. Cool? But this is pretty cool, right? This is like what we see. So Android is clearly now definitely up to par with like, iOS in terms of animations and stuff. Right? Because now you can do all this stuff, which is important. What other libraries have you guys used for animations?
I used
What's it called? Actually, can you post that in the Slack channel?
Yeah.
in the Slack channel? Okay. Anyone else have used animation libraries? Anyways, there's definitely a bunch out there, but again, what I hope that you guys paid attention to is the keyframes and the actual stuff behind that. Oh, actually, one more thing I forgot to show you guys. Sorry, this is my other stuff. Is that underneath this object animator is something else called a value animator. So object animator is setting properties, right? A value animator is simply just changing the value. So you can actually combine these things together, right? Because you have an object animator here. Right? Sometimes you want to animate things together, but you also want to change some state somewhere elsewhere. You want to do interpolation for those values, but not just like a setter and getter, right? You can also just like store that somewhere. Okay, let's see. Let's see what this looks like. What does this take? Sorry, I think it's the same thing. Value animator. You still have upflow, all this stuff. It doesn't take an actual object in this case, right? So you can say, I don't know, 200 F, and then you can say, I think you can just add a listener to it somehow. I don't know. Anyways, but it would basically listen for the value change. And so I think if you look in Object Animator, it extends a value animator, right? So this value animator is just like one level of abstraction deeper. Okay? So you can still use like your linear decelerate, accelerate, decelerate and stuff, but instead you're actually getting values. And this is great if you have like something really complex, right? You can have, it doesn't, this value animator actually doesn't just have a float, or you can actually create your own type as well. Okay? Cool. Alright guys, the next thing we're going to do is gestures. Gestures, right? Actually, let's take a 1 minute break, and then we'll dive in. It seems like you guys should think about. Okay, so yeah, let's take a 10-second break. I need to relax a little bit. Is that making sense, guys? Do you like animations? Do you guys like animations? Is not so good? Is good?
It's not really cool. I don't see any app in Android using any animation.
Yeah, there's not as many. Yeah, I think partly for legacy reasons, depending on how far back it supports, probably. But yeah, I don't know. Animations are good. Actually, the other thing I forgot to mention is material design animations. They actually specify. They actually have guidelines on like what the motion is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to like. There's supposed to be meaning, right? It's supposed to like convey something to the user, something useful, I guess. So I don't know. You guys can take a look at this, but like a button, like if you click on it, it should have some. It should almost feel like it does something, right? It should have like this haptic sort of like feel. Where you like touch a button, it might like bubble a little bit or something like that. But does that make sense, guys? Okay, cool. Gestures. It's kind of funny. I feel like I'm the one with a lot of energy right now. Okay, gestures. What is a gesture? I'm gonna start calling names. Ken, gesture. You don't know. Guess. Take a guess. Take a guess. What is a gesture? Gesture. What's a gesture? Gesture. Gesture.
If you swipe or something.
Swipe. A swipe is a gesture, right? Pinch, tap. The simplest one. What's the simplest one? Touch, right? Click. An on-click, right? Or a touch, right?
Touch down.
Okay.
Touch a bit.
So that's exactly. So if you guys think about what a gesture is, a gesture is basically like a sequence of touches or actions that happen like on your screen, right? And from there, you form these larger levels of. What's my magic word that I always use? Abstractions, right? So, like, think about what a click is, right? A click is a down and up, right? But what is it not? It is not a down swipe up, right? That's why you can get away, I believe, on Android by pressing down, swiping, and up, and that won't resemble a click, right? Tap is clearly down, up, right? There's also swipe, right? Like, swipe is like, it has to break a certain distance for it to resemble like some sort of gesture, right? A scroll is clearly like you can move up and down and it's like detecting that change, right? You have to break swipe actually has scrolling actually has a smaller threshold, right? Because you're literally saying, okay, if it moves like if the person drags 5 pixels, he's clearly trying to scroll. So we should generate this scroll action or event, right? That's why, for example, here, if you actually look at on click listener, it registers a set on click listener. So what happens, right? The best way to see it is it gets on click gets called, but let's take a look at where perform click is called, right? Perform click. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, so like these are clearly touch events, right? This is clearly an on, like what this is extending is like actually a gesture. So what it's doing is it's detecting all these actions at the same time, right? And then like creating like a concrete, more abstract understanding of what those touches mean. It's literally saying I'm taking all these motion events and touch events, and after all this stuff I'm tracking, I now see this as a click. So then fire the on-click listener, right? That's what it's doing. So when would you create your own gesture? So there's a lot of gestures that are already predefined, right? Like you have like a whole bunch of gestures out there, right? Like you have the on scroll. If you can listen just for a scroll view, you can say set scroll listener or whatever, and you should be able to just listen to that, right? I think so. Let's check. Let's see. Scroll view. Set on scroll listener, right? Right. So you have like all this stuff, right? That comes with it. Right? Does that make sense? But when would you create your own? Well, when things start to get a lot more complex. You want to. So how many of you have used Snapchat? Snapchat? This is clearly not like an American audience. But like, so one of the things that Snapchat does is on one screen they take a whole bunch of different gestures. Like they have long press, they mixed with swipe right, swipe left, because every gesture means something. So there's ways to compose them, but you can imagine that their thresholds are probably different than what's already like predefined, right? So instead of, so what they probably do is they probably have their own gesture listener that listens for certain things, and instead of saying, oh, this means swipe, instead it means next page, right? There's a clear product level abstraction that they detect with their own gestures, right? Let's say I'm on activity and I swipe, swipe left, but let's say swipe like certain distance is different from, swiping like, all the way to the edge of the screen. Let's say, I don't know, like things like that, right? You can imagine how complicated it is. You want to basically process your touches your own way, right? So how would you do that? Okay, so right now, I'm actually going to just add a listener. Android. I think there's something called what? Content? How does it work? How do I get the content view? I forgot. Shoot. Let me look this up. Oh, this link. See. Okay, yeah, there's all right. Okay. Set my own touch listener, right? So what would this on touch listener generally look like? You basically have these motion events, right? And then literally, you would basically keep track of these motion events, right? So let's see. Event get action. So what is this action return? Basically, there's a whole bunch, right? I think there's like, yeah, right. Motion event, action down, action move, scroll up, right? There's a whole bunch, right? So it's like down, up, right? They have hover and exit. Why do they have hover and exit? You have mobile. Why do they have hover and exit? Well, it's because Android actually can run on like a desktop too, right? So you can actually connect a mouse, and you literally have a mouse pointer, right? So you can have hover and action. But what you're doing is you're basically, you can imagine, you can say, okay, instead of creating like a new on touch listener in there, right? You would create like a new custom touch listener. On touch listener. But why is that not working? Oh, sorry. It's in my face. Right. And I would literally track for, okay, event, get action. Let's say I want to reproduce click, right? So get action equals motion event action down. I think there's a time, right, or something like that. Time. Anyways, there's basically you can keep track of that, right? So I can look for this. Sorry, this is kind of messy, right? Action up. But what is my else? My else is you would keep track of like Boolean has started, right? So my started would be set to true here. And then I can say if has started, I don't know, like, right, you would basically fire on click, right? But what else do? Else would actually wipe that out, right? Because that's basically saying I've taken a different action during that time, right? Let's say we're reproducing click. It's down, up, right? Right? If I like down, move, up, the move should cancel out the click, right? Does that make sense, guys? Right? So you're actually literally like this is an entire whole different state machine just to keep track of touches and gestures. You're literally like keeping state and saying, okay, as I'm getting these touches, you know, change the state until like I hit like a product level function and then fire, right? Okay, cool. So instead of using this, I actually have an example for swipe. Okay? And we're going to tie this all together. So I'm going to copy this, but I'm actually going to change it because this is actually not exactly how I would code it. But in order to save time, I don't know why it's not copying. Okay. Copy. Okay. So I say on swipe touch listener. Okay, let's replace all this. Okay. But can you guys kind of see what it's doing, right? It has a threshold, it has a velocity that it's trying to keep track of, right? And it's doing like all these different things, right? And then once it detects like this fling event, you basically have like it will call like on swipe right somewhere, right? It calls on swipe right somewhere. Okay, this is so. What am I going to change? I am going to so it's a listener, but I don't know. Let's say call it on swipe adapter or something. On swipe detector. I think. I don't know. We'll come up with a better name. Move all this stuff away. All right. To here. You guys see what I'm doing, right? What I didn't like about this. It was not conforming to Java standards. And then I will actually swipe detector. I think I chose a bad name. Sorry, guys. Swift. Actually, let's not call this on swipe. What should we call this? This is not a bad name because there's already a detector here. On swipe. Recognize. Okay, perfect. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it, guys. Thanks. And then all this stuff is basically if. Well, actually, no. We can basically assume that they always pass it in, right? Okay. Cool. Now let's use it. Almost done, guys. Almost done. Okay. So we're gonna do new on swipe listener takes a context, which is this, and a new on swipe recognizer, which is this. Right? What are we going to do? We are going to animate. We are going to. That's good. Swipe right. Actually, sorry. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do it too fast. And actually, let's take this too. Ready? Did it work? Shoot. Oh no, it did hit it. Oh no, I forgot to call start. Right? Run, run, run. It's animating. All right, ready? Stop. Yes. Stop. Right? Yeah. Like it. Almost there. Stop. Cool? Does that make sense, guys? Questions? Questions? No questions? Okay.
Maybe use 2 fingers.
So I think they have all these gesture recognizers, right? So you would have to basically look for the double touch. They have, again, you can compose a lot of things together. I think there's ways also that 2 gesture recognizers can be on top of each other somehow. But yeah, right? You would have to like detect that, right? You're talking about 2 fingers, right? Swiping left, swiping right, right? You would literally have to detect 2 touch points, swipe left, swipe. 2 distinct touches, right? Cool? Okay. Do we need a recap? Or is that good enough? Recap. Okay, recap. We did animations and gestures. We went through property animators. We went through activity and fragment animations. We went through value animations. We went through, at the low level, what's happening with animations, which, in my opinion, is the most important. And then we went over gestures. And then, of course, we also went over styling because you can override like the default implementations of fragment or activity animations. Okay? Cool, guys? All right, you guys have 10 minutes. Go talk with your teams and plan out some stuff. If you guys need me to step in or like need me to like come grab me if you need me to like talk to you guys about the projects. But yeah, Thursday we have lab, and next week will be our final week. So class is coming to a close. But yeah, I will actually, and then again, hackathon, right? 7th. Remember that. So most of you guys were interested, right? All right, actually, let me stop this.